One example with how they handle their privacy policy shows that Google's motto is completely inconsistent with their practices. Now, in order for Google to become an ethical organization, it's imperative that they transform their espoused values into enacted values.
Now, as mentioned, Google does operate in this information technology sector and the technology industry. Now, outlined here on the screen are the FANG stocks. The FANG stocks are debatably the most recognizable in this sector and consist of Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Now, regarding privacy policy, we'll look into a few of the issues regarding each company, and we'll first start with Facebook. Now, Facebook never conveys their information, that they're sharing the information that users are inputting into the social media site that they're sharing with third-party intermediaries. Recently, they've received a lot of backlash towards this data breach and is one of the largest in the information technology history. Moving on to Amazon, Amazon agrees to only share its consumers' information within its subsidiaries. However, as Amazon continues to grow, there could be further issues regarding consumers' information due to the fact that they have such sensitive information such as credit card information. Apple does not require users to input all of their information, however, does not guarantee the highest quality of products if consumers decided not to do so. And Netflix does not require users to input their information unless they want to receive the monthly newsletter. However, it does track the user's activity in order to offer shows that they might be interested in. Now, Google is associated with these stocks. So as we've seen with Facebook, Facebook has the potential to move the overall stock market. Now, Google is associated with all the FANG stocks and, again, has the ability to be affected by any sort of privacy issue within these companies. Google needs to hold itself to a higher echelon amongst these companies and indeed do the right thing. Now, cybersecurity is such a new concept to all of these companies, and Google has the financial standing, the legal prowess in order to master cybersecurity and be a model for these companies to follow.
Now, it is important to note that Google does participate in corporate social responsibility. So they offer various programs such as Google Serve, which is a day in June where all employees are encouraged to leave their desk and volunteer at a organization. There's also employee gift matching, where Google contributes to organizations that their employees have contributed to. Googlers Giving Back, which is a program where Google encourages their employees to volunteer at charities that they're passionate about and that they love. And lastly, there's Google for Nonprofit, where Google offers free or highly discounted Google tools to nonprofit organizations. Now, while this is a step in the right direction, this does not help Google stand out. These are programs that almost all organizations offer, and in order for Google to become an industry leader and offer ethical products, they need to place value in their corporate social responsibility, and the first step in that is differentiating the programs that they offer.
And further looking at corporate social responsibility, according to Bloomberg, Google is an industry leader in regards to corporate governance and corporate social responsibility. However, much like customer satisfaction, it has been recently leveling off due to the fact that it put a focus on a few of its key stakeholders, which is the environment, its colleagues, and its community. However, Google does not put a major focus on the overall customer, which is debatably one of the most important stakeholders within the company. Now, as mentioned, Google is an industry leader, but in order to remain holding itself on such a higher echelon and doing the right thing for its overall company, Google needs to put a priority on its number one stakeholder, which is the customer.
Now, in order for Google to produce ethical products, become an industry leader, and have increased customer loyalty, we recommend various solutions. Legally, we recommend that Google remembers that they have an obligation to go above the law. They need to prioritize the needs of the consumers before the needs of the company. Financially, Google has a strong financial standing and they have projected growth. However, we recommend that Google invests in fixing their privacy issues for long-term success. And ethically, we recommend that Google remembers that they do have a duty to their stakeholders. And the first step in that is differentiating their corporate social responsibility. So thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Can you go back a slide?
Yeah. Sorry about the other one.
Can you articulate the problem? I mean, we say we do the right thing. One solution, it seems to me, is we stop saying. Why? Why is this a problem for us?
So I think Google does need to hold itself to the highest of the information technology stocks. Because of this, as I mentioned, cybersecurity is so new for the overall sector. No company really has mastered it, whether it's the financial sector of the economy or the information technology sector. Cybersecurity and protecting customers' privacy is important across the entire industry. So we're not recommending that they need to change their company motto, because having a motto of doing the right thing is a really strong statement of the company. We don't think that they should change it. We think they should do more in the solutions that we present to living by that motto.
What's the danger to us if we don't?
Well, then,
We're awfully big.
well, yes, we're awfully big, but so are other organizations. So in order to produce ethical products and have increased customer loyalty, we need to do the right thing in order to have a greater following and people trust our products.
So as we talk about in the legal portion of our presentation, Google has the potential to be impacted largely by any sort of backlash from consumers, and if there's a lawsuit or anything, yes, we generate a lot of revenue, but we see as the company grows, there is the potential for growing issues coming out of their revenue due to legal aspects affecting the company.
So we're always going to be a target, right? Because we're on the bleeding edge and people want a share of our market share. They don't want us to have it. So litigation costs, the size of our law department, I mean, it's going to be there. How many of our customers have we lost as a result of our policy, and how much ad revenue has gone away because our advertisers don't like our policies?
So because of the policies and the issue regarding consumer confidence, we believe that consumers will start looking towards other alternatives. So for example, the Google Home, consumers may start turning towards the Amazon Alexa or other sort of smaller companies that may be capitalizing on the protection of consumer data. So there's a few other smaller companies, of course Google is the largest, but that have mastered and being clear with the customer saying, we are listening, but we're not storing your data. We're listening for the key term. For example, it's for Google, it's okay Google or hey Google. For Alexa, it's Alexa. But for these companies, they're listening for the key term, and they're listening for what the consumer's asking, but then they don't store any of the information. We're not sure that as a company we're doing that, so we want to make sure that we're clear with the customer and voicing that, because there's a lot of consumer lack of confidence in that.
Let me ask you something. Isn't this whole thing about privacy a myth? Isn't it just left over from the 1950s?
I don't exactly know. Can you elaborate further a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there is no privacy. There's no privacy anywhere. We have driver's licenses, we have license plates, we have telephone bills, we have electricity bills. We go to school, we have records. Everybody knows everything about us. Who cares?
Whether that is true. However, consumers, whether they know it or not, like to think that they are completely private. So if they are going to purchase our products and have customer loyalty because we provide a sense of privacy, then I think that that's something we need to.
Can you define privacy in that context?
Well, I think in terms of Google, privacy is not taking their information and putting it towards advertising. And essentially,
I'm sorry, 90% of our revenue, we are an ad-based company. How could we not be providing a free service and people not understand that?
As a company, I don't think we're voicing that clear enough to
Let's go back to our statement on privacy. We tell people we're going to share.
That one.
There you go.
So I don't believe they're telling the customer straight out, this is what we're doing. That's the solution that we're proposing, is they need to be clear to their customer. They changed this, but they didn't tell the customer that they're changing it. They need to voice that.
Where's the law that says we have to tell our customers when we change the policy?
I think it's going above the law, as we mentioned in the legal aspect, because Google's not breaking any laws, but it's a matter of doing the right thing for our customers and building that customer that they trust Google more than it is a matter of legality. It's more a matter of doing the right thing, which is leading up to what Google's motto is of doing the right thing.
And if you go back to our solution slide, that's one of the solutions that we're proposing in the legal aspect is, as Shannon mentioned, we're not breaking any laws, but we need to go above the law and hold ourselves.
And as we mentioned, under the third-party doctrine, Google is not breaking any laws, but yet they have been involved with lawsuits where they are selling and distributing this personal information. So while their company policy is stating that they're not breaking any laws, their actual actions are breaking the law.
But when you become parents, you will never hear your children say to you, or you'll never say to your children, I don't know. Why? Because you can Google it. And you'll have the answer at your fingertips. Isn't that a fair trade-off for a little loss of privacy?
Well, as we've talked about, you can do it, that's your thing.
I was gonna say, but when an individual makes a Google search, they're consenting to it more than if your email is scanned through, just because. So if you're having private emails, that's a little different than you typing in the search bar looking for an answer. You're not looking for any information when you're sending an email to another individual, and maybe the contents of that email are scanned and used to advertise and market towards you.
How much are we charging our customers to use our email service?
It's free.
Right.
Yeah.
How much, you talked about the third party, how much do individual state privacy laws, the federal information privacy principles, all come into play, and especially for Google since we're international? How much do the privacy laws around the world, the European Union, play into this whole issue?
Well, you can look at that as that they don't really have an influence, because if you're looking at the third-party doctrine, Google is completely covered if they just say that their consumers are aware of these practices and they are not selling or distributing the information, so therefore they're not partaking in any illegal activity. And so the privacy laws are undercut by this third-party doctrine because they have no foundation.
But we do so.
Yes.
Right. In some circumstances, but Google is presenting themselves as a company that does not sell this information.
They need to be clear.
Are we though? Because our statement says that we're going to share it.
With the company itself, not
Where do we say we're not going to sell the information?
The privacy policy has no mention of that.
selling.
Yep, selling. And it,
Would we fix it by saying that specifically on privacy policy?
I believe so.
Yes.
I think explicitly stating it gives the consumers more of a sense of awareness of where that information that Google is obtaining is going. And I think from a consumer standpoint, they would be more confident if they had if it was written explicitly.
What if we said, we're going to sell your data, and we'll pass the savings on to you in the form of free services?
That would be more ethical, that would be more transparent, and I think that might be the correct solution.
But again, some consumers wouldn't agree with that potentially, and it could dip their stock prices, relating back to what happened with Facebook when all of this news comes out about privacy issues and the data just being shared unwillingly. The stock prices have dipped both in Google and Facebook.
Can't let people just stop using Google?
Yeah. Who's making someone use our product?
No one is at all, and that's where we see the stock dips when there are articles published about this. You see users to maybe not completely stop using it, but obviously they're going to concern themselves with what they're
What
doing.
do you think it would cost us to implement a program in which we gave users absolute control over the flow of their data in every direction?
I think they would have to research and develop it more. Like we were talking about, they had an increase in $2.6 billion in research and development just last year. I think if they can allocate even maybe a third of that, so approximately, we'll just say $1 billion into research and development and how to fix that solution, I think that would be better than just putting all the money into a solution and enacting it right away.
Going off that, I think privacy wasn't as big of a concern if we went back maybe 10, 15 years ago, but because Facebook is all over the news, consumers are really focusing on their privacy and whether or not they're going to do business with a company, and more individuals are looking to do business with companies that are more corporate, socially responsible. For example, Lawrence Fink, who's CEO of BlackRock, who is an institutional holder of Google, stated that he's only investing in companies that focus on corporate social responsibility. And Google does that, as we mentioned, in about 3 of the 4 of the aspects, where they focus on the employee, the consumer, the employee, the environment, and the community, but doesn't do so much for the consumer. So now as people are reading the news, watching the news, seeing CEO of Facebook up on in the Supreme Court being questioned, they're going to look towards their privacy policy and whether or not when they're doing business with companies, whether or not their information is really being used for generating revenue. So consumers are going to start looking towards the importance of that and focus of their privacy.
Now, what's that guy's name?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Something? Yeah.
Yeah,
He went to that school across the river.
Did he drop out of that school across the river?
I don't think he graduated. But haven't we, as Google, been the best kind of corporate citizen in terms of being available to help social causes, actual revolutions, the Arab Spring, all those uprisings that led to democratic institutions?
And that's the point when we were discussing the FANG stocks. Google's associated with those companies, but we are suggesting doing more, whether that's something with research and development, doing more as a company to hold itself to the highest of standards. Because personally, I don't know if anyone agrees or you as the board agree, that Google's associated with Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and then Google. But Google needs to be the top of those companies, and consumers will trust them if they implement these other sort of socially responsible acts to help the consumer.
But what if, I don't know, the president of Syria drops chemical weapons on children? I get out my phone and I have to opt in order to be able to send a message to the world about the atrocities taking place here. Can that be the solution? Opting in?
What do you mean by opting in to send a message?
You can't use the system until you agree to the terms. You agree to have your messages copied and distributed.
Is that on a case-by-case basis, or we're thinking like if they're agreeing to use their services, they need to be like upfront with their terms and conditions at the start of using their product. That way you're agreeing and you know every single time you're using it. So in a case like that, you've already agreed to it. But right now we're saying we're not being explicitly clear with that. So we need to do more in order to do so.
So is your statement about Google being unethical based solely in transparency, or did you have some other foundational basis for that?
So I think the basis begun, and I don't know if I'm interpreting your question correctly, but from the Google Home and the issues of the Google Home. So we thought as a consulting firm that the Google Home was causing issues with consumers and whether or not their information was being listened to, and how Alexa was an alternative and what we could do to benefit the Google Home. And then we started looking towards other products, and we found that this was been an issue consistently across the products and across the company, that we weren't being explicitly clear with our privacy statements. So we, as a consulting firm, are proposing to you as the board that we need to do more as a company to hold ourselves to that higher pedestal.
Okay, and do you have in your solution, I guess over here, do you have a statement you want us to consider?
So we believe, as an overarching statement, to put the customer first. I think that's most important as a company, and to put, yes, we do other socially responsible things. We're saying put the customer first, and
But our
granting all
customers are advertisers.
Right. So as a means to get to that, we need to, that's true.
So, you're solely looking at it from like a profit base. We want to look at it from a consumer base, not just for profit, because Google should pride itself not only on its profits, but on how people perceive the company and what the reputation is. If they want to be better than Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and all those other tech companies, they shouldn't be better in only profits. They should be better in consumer confidence and how the consumers perceive the overall company.
Also, if consumers do not trust Google as a company and they're not going to use their services, then who are we advertising to? If we lose these consumers to other sources of information, then there is no source of ad revenue generation because there's no one to advertise to.
And you bring about the idea of a revolution again. Let's start as Google, let's start a revolution in the cybersecurity department and really be the change that Facebook and Amazon haven't done yet, and set the precedent for the future and be able to really be a revolutionary asset in that industry.
Branching off of that, another solution will be to be first to market with quality products. So when we started looking into Google Home, it had to be recalled because of these privacy concerns. But when we mentioned the self-driving car, that's not really something that you can be recalling, because then lives are at stake. If consumers are entering this car, you can't really be recalling that due to glitches or anything. So we're proposing also that we need to be first to market with quality products for the customer.
I'm kind of stuck on whether our users, I won't talk about our customers who are retailers and all that, our users are better off than the cow in the McDonald's example. Having a hard time with that. Can you tell me in a sentence what you want us to do?
I think as a sentence, overall, as a company, we need to hold ourselves to a higher echelon amongst all technology companies. And I think there's many solutions that do that, as we've been proposing. So that's being first to market with quality products, doing more research and development towards cybersecurity.
Our suggestion is live your motto. If you're going to
Doing the
propose
right
to the
thing.
world that you're doing the right thing, then live that, do the right thing.
More questions? If I can figure out how to turn off the timer, I'll do that. Congratulations, you can take a deep breath. We're kind of tough on you, right?
No.
How do you feel? Relieved? I thought you guys were terrific. It's a very complex area. Obviously, it's been in the news, and you mastered it. You knew the subject. No notes. Didn't turn around and read the screen to us. Good job.
Thank you.
I think you bit off a very big project, and so my congratulations. I think you really did do very well. I would, however, make the following